Happy New Year, everyone. I'm senior producer Eric Kyron Davis here with your studio update. We're cranking through some really exciting things out here in LA, so I want to give you a quick glimpse into what we're working on. Filling a universe with unique clothing is no easy task, and as you'd expect, clothing and outfit production is in full force with our character team. One example that's currently in production is our Explorer flight suit. You may remember early concepts of this suit from a while ago, but the idea being that different suit types will offer customizable options, each providing advantages and disadvantages for ultimately enabling different styles of gameplay. We're also deep into the polishing process for different head options as well as hair, and they're going through some thorough rounds of feedback to put them in your hands at the highest quality as soon as possible. We're also diving deeper into production on the Drake Buccaneer, which, if you're following along on the ship pipeline steps, we've moved into gray box phase since we last talked. As of today, we've already completed the fuselage, engine, wings, and front landing gear. We'll be moving on to the nose, cockpit, and the rear landing gear before going on to our final art pass. Now, engineering has had a lot going on, such as Radar 2.0. The main reason we're revising the radar system is so that it can easily take advantage of Item System 2.0 and also provide us an opportunity to clean things up and redesign things just slightly. We're also far into the mega map code, specifically loading and unloading of object containers, which will open up a universe of options in the PU and beyond. Well, that wraps us up for this week's update. Thank you for joining us and see you soon.
Hi everyone, welcome to another studio update from here in the UK. My name's Nick Elms, I'm the creative director here at Foundry 42. As you might imagine, since the 2.6 release, we've been very busy trying to get 2.6.1 out for you. There's been a lot of bug fixing, a lot of feedback that we've been taking on board from you guys, and John Crew and Andy Nicholson have been looking at incorporating a balancing pass now with all the feedback we've been gathering from you guys in the community, from you playing 2.6, and they're making a comprehensive review that hopefully we're going to be getting into 2.6.1. We're going to look at the Mist Razor next, which I think you saw in November for the concept sale. It's now with the ship team, and in particular Joe Neville, who's working on it through its white box stage. As part of the ongoing VFX polish and optimization, we're going to take a look at the Drake Caterpillar. We've been working on the throttle up and down engine effects, and with the Herald, they've been working on the explosion effects. This is the kind of stuff that we sort of send around the office on a daily basis, and we thought we'd share it with you guys so you can get an idea of what we see. And as you'll see here, the VFX guys have shared us a V-roll of all the ship weapons firing simultaneously. Surface outposts is what we're going to take a look at next, which I think we've released a couple of snapshots of, but it's starting to come online a lot further now for us in the form of the building sets that we're starting to get through from the artists. The designers are particularly excited now about all the gameplay opportunities that these will afford as they can actually lay them out on the planet's surfaces now for you guys to investigate. That wraps it up for another UK update. As I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of work still going on behind the scenes with bug fixing, optimizations and feedback, etc. All that remains really is me to say back to LA and see you in the verse.
Hey everyone, I am Brian Chambers, Development Director of Foundry 42 Frankfurt. Since our last update, the team's grown by an additional 6 people across 5 different disciplines. We're glad to have them on board, and I'm sure in the near future you'll meet some of them. The entire team's been busy, so I'll give you a quick update on a few of the disciplines. For the weapons team, they've been busy reworking some of our current weapons from the Klaus and Werner manufacturer. The Gallant, the Arrowhead, and the Arclight are all getting revamped to have a finer level of detail, as well as prepping them to work with our future attachment system. The Devastator 12 from the Kostak Arms manufacturer is also going through a similar process. In regards to ship weapons, the team's been blocking out different type of weapon types, sizes, and upgrade levels for the Knightsbridge arms manufacturer. The QA team here in Frankfurt works closely with both the design team and the engine team on a daily basis to support them however they need. One bit of recent support was validating damage to players. They used our existing FPS test map to verify how much damage a player could take on each portion of the body, all at different ranges. They used all existing weapons at various distances, both online and off, and documented all their findings along the way. In the process, we actually found some discrepancies in the damage taken to player, so we were able to tear those apart and rectify those for our 2.6 release. The environment team also works closely with the engine team on a daily basis to be able to push our visuals for the planetary tech. They made some great progress on some new procedural moons, making sure they look good not only from an extreme distance, but as well as close up to all the way to the point where you land on them and explore. They also made progress on new varieties of vegetation. Along with the new varieties, the engineers have also implemented the functionality, so we can now have bending tree trunks and branches, as opposed to previously where we just had leaves that moved. Moving on to VFX. The VFX team also works with the engineers, and they've been recently working with them on some new tool sets for procedural particles. The tools allow us to spawn particles based on specific parameters to help the environment feel more dynamic and alive. Parameters including such thing as terrain elevation, angle, specific texture, specific ecosystem, and on and on. We also now have ecosystem-based weather particles that are attached to the camera and procedurally play when you're inside that specific ecosystem, as well as the ability to group particles along with specific procedurally distributed objects such as trees or rocks. This will allow us to add more bespoke detail to items across the procedurally scattered items, such as leaves falling from trees and dust blowing off rocks, etc. So that's it from Frankfurt. Thanks again for watching. Thanks for all the support, and we'll see you next time.
Howdy folks, Jake Ross here, producer of CIG Austin with a look at what's going on here this month here in the Austin studio. Lead designer Rob Reiniger has completed his game design document for the shopping kiosk feature, and we're now discussing timeline for implementation with UI team and the game code team. Very excited to have this feature ready to implement. We're excited to have wrapped this up because it means pretty soon we'll be able to use this interface for not just shopping for things like items and clothing and weapons, ship parts in the game, but also for performing landing pad services such as repairing and refueling your ship, loading and unloading cargo, and that kind of thing. This is a huge step in the right direction that will allow us to bring much of the shopping experience on our website to the in-game universe. On the animation front, the PU animation team has been trucking along nicely on implementing and polishing the usable animations that will be used in both Squadron 42 and the PU. Currently, we're polishing up these table leans that we're using for things like leaning on the table in the mess hall for aboard the Idris in Squadron 42. We've also been getting female versions of the already existing male animations like work zones and wall leans in the game as well. The ship animation team has been wrapping up polish tasks for combat speeds, enters and exits into the ship cockpits. We're hoping to wrap all of these up by the end of the month, at which point we'll be moving on to implementing new cockpit startup sequences for the different cockpit types, which is cool. We're still determining who our code resource will be that we'll be partnering with on that feature, but once that is done, we'll be ready to hit the ground running, implementing an awesome new interactive system for starting up your ship before takeoff. On the art side of things, ship artists Chris Smith and Josh Kuntz have been making good progress on the new and improved Anvil Super Hornet and the Drake Cutlass Black, respectively. The updates that Chris is doing on the Super Hornet are basically just to bring the ship in line with our current quality standards that we have now. And these are almost complete, and we're looking forward to getting them out to y'all to the release 261. Over in DevOps land, we're working hard to start supporting multi-region server deployment. We're very excited about this feature, and we're hoping in the not too distant future we'll be able to deploy servers in more regions than we have previously to help improve latency, among other things. We're hoping to utilize data centers around the world to spin up more game servers in regions like North America, Europe, and Australia. So yeah, that's all I have for you this week, guys. Thanks. See you around.
Hello and welcome back to Foundry 42 in the UK for our studio update. I'm lead designer Phil Meller.
I'm QA tester Mickey Oliver.
Our team here in Wilmslow continues to grow, and we now have over 200 staff here. And while the team comprises nearly every aspect that goes into making Star Citizen and Squadron 42, here are some of the highlights of what the team has been working on lately.
Our props team have a few components and ship parts to show us, including a shield generator, a storage console, and a mining module.
So our VFX team have been having fun blowing up ships again. So yeah, some people get all the fun. And another example of the amount of detail that goes into our level environments is this in-fiction magazine cover from our UI team.
As the game expands and becomes more complicated, our design team used some awesome internal tools, such as this map of the Stanton system. We thought you might like it, so let's take a look.
The artists are always adding detail and character to all areas, such as asteroids, nebulas, modular satellites, and stations.
So there's a look at some of the things we've been working on.
And now, back over to your host.
Hey everyone, I'm Eric Kyron Davis, Senior Producer here in Los Angeles. As many of you know, the LA office houses several disciplines working across multiple aspects of Star Citizen. So we wanted to give you a quick update on the progress we've been making. One of our biggest teams is the technical content team, led by the great Sean Tracy. Members of his team span across 3 time zones. And if you were to describe that team, the function of that team on a t-shirt, it reads something like solving problems you didn't know you had in ways you wouldn't understand. So to understand those solved problems, here's some of the things that they did. To start, a portion of the team is working with engineering on the new damage system. As we've shown in the past, some ships are already using the new damage system, which create much more random and organic damage effects via procedurally generated materials and an internal skeleton that appears when the metal just melts away. We've also been working on adding the physics-driven destructible behavior to our item system 2.0. Initially, this just meant converting the existing functionality into the new item 2.0 health and damage system. However, this work is much more than just a port. Networking, persistence, and VFX functionality will be improved, and it also extends destructibility to a broader class of entities, including props. Members of the tech content team also work with animation to implement the introduction of facial idols for pilots of all ships. Now, no more death stares when flying over to save someone from Korea. Additionally, tech content developed a tool for marking up zones that are used by the renderer to hide and show different areas on a character mesh when layered pieces of clothing and armor are equipped. So basically, if your character is wearing a shirt and then you put a jacket on, the zone culling tells the renderer to hide and ignore any part of the shirt that is out of sight. One of Tech Content's many contributions to this powerful feature was to create a tool that automatically zones and splits any number of assets regardless of topology. This allows us to quickly implement the zone culling feature onto an already massive database of character art in a fraction of the time. So in a nutshell, as opposed to manually updating existing armor and clothing to work with this new feature, this tool will automate that process and save us a lot of dev time. Now, our tech design team has been working on many different elements of the game. And one of their many tools to help everyone visualize expected gameplay is to develop prototypes of upcoming features and gameplay. Recently, we've had 2 prototypes come out of tech design. The first was based off of Chris's initial vision for the interaction system, which in a nutshell is the interface by which players will be able to control and manipulate various objects in the game world, such as ships, control panels, weapons, and a whole lot more. Once they roughed out that system, they worked with programming and UI to ensure that the prototype functionality was not only clear on what we're trying to achieve, but actually possible. And the second prototype was how the player controls the properties of items to manage their signals generated by entities like spaceships. For example, how the power is managed to shields, weapons, and thrusters, which allow us to manage our emissions and engage in a kind of a stealthy gameplay. The foundational work of this prototype will allow us to change properties of these items so that we can determine how upgrading will be desirable and fixes our previously limited system, which we were unable to balance, and provide a much more direct way to implement gameplay via simple numerical values. They're also deep into the setup of the Drake Cutlass Black, Buccaneer, and the rework of the RSI Aurora, as well as another ship we can't quite discuss yet. And lastly, they're taking a pass at updating our ship stats page on the website to bring all the information about our ships up to the most current specs. As part of this change, we plan on providing regular updates about any changes to each of our ships going forward. Now, over on the engineering side, the team has been working on instance properties, which allow designers to modify any part of an entity component in editor or in game. With this feature, designers do not have to create tons of similar entity templates for our game. They just need to expose some parameters, which the designer can then modify inside the editor. This will save asset storage space and really reduce the number of entity components, but at the same time, allow for much more variations. And obviously, with the ultimate aim to create seamless transitions through our entire universe, the engineering team is making progress on object container streaming by changing some of our core engine code, which will radically increase the amount of content we can put in the game all at once without sacrificing any performance. For example, we're currently replacing the old prefab system in the hangar and shops with an object container in the preparation for this expected streaming. On the radar front, we've added an extra timer value to the object data bank, which will be used to specify how much time an entry can remain as an echo contact, as well as implementing the metadata component interface, which is an entity component that can be attached to any entity to make them radar detectable. We've also added an object data bank linking and unlinking feature so that entities will inherit databank entries from their parent. This will allow a player to inherit information from the ship he or she is currently sitting in. And then we're also working on new scanner gameplay tied into the new radar system that build on the mechanic of revealing more or hidden information on radar objects. We're really excited about this addition because it will have a lot of potential elements to scanning another ship and will be instrumental in the eternal struggle between smugglers and law enforcement, for example. Lastly, the engineering team is working on lighting states to provide a little bit more context when it comes to space stations, ship interiors, and other sorts of man or alien-made environments. We want the lights to be able to have various altered states to reflect certain situations, like low power or emergency lockdown. While we currently have a way to accomplish this using layer switching, it has its downsides, such as requiring duplicate lights for each state and having no options for transition animations. We're therefore developing a new entity called a light group that will take control of these lights that are assigned to it. With its own internal state machine, the light group will be able to modify its lights depending on the current state. For example, switching from a normal light state to an emergency light state and then back. You can think of it as the ultimate light switch. Now, over on the character side, we've moved further down the pipeline on many of our new outfits. Specifically in Squadron 42, we have lots of deck crew who work a variety of jobs, and some of them need to work on the exterior of ships in the vacuum of space. This deck crew outfit is coming along nicely and is firmly in the high poly modeling phase. Also, you've seen the Explorer spacesuit recently in the newsletter and on our previous updates, and it's moving along nicely as well. The team is finalizing texturing and has already been sent to rigging, which will allow us to get it tested in-game in the very near future. And last but not least, we're working very hard on the Heavy Armor class for both Marine and Outlaw. We now have the 3D concept for the Heavy Outlaw going through rounds of feedback, and once that concept's approved, it'll move right on into the high poly modeling phase. While the Heavy Marine is in engine and headed over to the rigging team, then on to the final implementation. Well, that wraps us up for the LA Studio update. Thank you very much for your support, and see you again soon.